It's working.
So anyway, enough about
It
me.
was working too.
We're here to honor Lucille Robertson Link. Lucille was born in Staten Island. Her parents were Walter and Ada. She went to public school, PS 45 on Staten Island. Yes. She went to elementary school and kindergarten there. Now, Lucille and Ronnie were very close in age. So close that Lucille had to wait 1 year to attend school so they could go together. In the same year. Is that togetherness or what? And one day, Lucille asked her mother, "Can I go outside and play with the boys next door?" Her mother said, "No, Lucille, you can't play with the boys. They're too rough." Lucille thought about that for a minute. She said, "If I can find a smooth one, can I play with him?" And then one time they were going to Sunday school. Mrs. Robertson asked Lucille and Ronnie this question: "Why is it necessary to be quiet in church?" And little Lucille, knowing all the answers, said, "Because people are sleeping." Lucille attended Curtis High School on Staten Island. Ever the ambitious lady, she worked during high school as a clerk at the R.H. Macy store, which kept her out of trouble and in the chips. And then she went on to Notre Dame College on, where else? Staten Island. She met the love of her life, Paul Wesley Link, while she was attending plays at Silver Lake Park in Staten Island. Well, rather than watching any of the plays, they only had eyes for each other. Lucille married her young man and lived in an apartment in Staten Island. After moving on to a second apartment, they ended up purchasing a home in Staten Island. Our Staten Island girl worked as a manager in charge of clothing sales at, are you ready for this? The food farm. Does that sound strange? Yes, you heard right. Clothing at the food farm, but there's more to the story. The food farm, besides food, of course, sold clothing as well as shoes. Oh, those New York people are something else. Or should I say Staten Island people. As Lucille's marriage continued, she had a little girl, Carol, who had a full head of hair at birth. She still does. Appearances were very important to Lucille, and being well-groomed was high on the list. So when Carol tells us she was forced to sit in front of a stove to dry her hair, we only have Lucille's word that that was the real reason to have a child put her head in the oven. As I mentioned, being well-groomed was instilled in both Lucille and Ronnie at an early age. I remember when they would go visit Grandma, they had to sit in the back seat in only their underwear, so their clothes didn't get all wrinkly. Who could make this up? Just before they arrived, they put on their neatly pressed dresses. I don't know how this was accomplished. Just use your imagination. As you know, we didn't have child protective agencies at that time. Lucille's father was a kind, gentle man who never raised his voice, and he was the apple of Lucille's eye. He was her father alone, and to make absolutely sure that Ronnie didn't grab any undue attention from Dad, Lucille told Ronnie she was adopted. Only Lucille was his natural child. Well, you know what they say, still waters run deep. Lucille carried on the gentleness, whoops, I said I'd been drinking, and raising her own children by never raising her voice. However, I have it on good authority that if you started to misbehave, all Lucille had to do was give you the look.
He still does.
Apparently, many women have this talent. Right, Judy? After retiring from raising children and a working career, Lucille and Paul moved to Briar Creek in 1982 or 1983. Nobody seemed to can remember. Thank you. Ronnie, Lucille, and I palled around quite a bit when we were younger. And I was sort of the single wild one, but I was from a very rich family. And I mean, they call it the horse set. I mean, we had polo ponies and regular ponies. Anyway, they called me the horse set, but I think that was because I was hot to trot. It could happen. And I came down to visit Ronnie and Lucille, and they could have been a little embarrassed. Actually, after about 5 years, they didn't invite me anymore. But one day we were lounging around the swimming pool, and all of a sudden, a stark naked man came running across the side of the pool with nary a stitch on, except a hat that completely covered his face. All his glory was jingling and jangling as he ran by. Ronnie said, "Oh my goodness, who is that?" Lucille said, "I don't know." And I said, "Well, I know one thing for sure, he doesn't even live in Briar Creek." One day we were sitting by the pool again, and two old ladies were reminiscing one to the other, and one asked, "Do you remember the Charleston?" The other one said, "My dear, I can't even remember the men I made love to." You know, I had a number of husbands, I think 11. They were all rich and very old, which is what you need to do. Well, when my first husband passed away, I was telling Lucille and Ronnie that his funeral cost $50,000. They asked why it cost so much. I said, well, it was $5,000 for the funeral, $5,000 for the caskets, and $40,000 for the stone. Well, it was a 3-carat emerald cut. Briar Creek is the place to make lifelong friends. And speaking of friends, this is the time to ask anyone who has a short story about their memories of Lucille. They can come up and say something now. But knowing how well behaved she is, there's probably nothing to say. And on a serious note, I found this little, it's not a poem, but it's pieces of wisdom. And I thought, this is the perfect time to tell this. It is wonderful to be young, with clear eyesight, acute hearing, energetic step, and a heartbeat pulsing with exhilarating health. Youth is the sowing. Youth stays long enough to strengthen our shoulders for the burdens ahead. Youth is wasted on the young, for the aged are more appreciative. Old age celebrates the harvest. Old age has glories that youth cannot know. Enjoy what you have while you can. Your health, your friends, good food, good wine, good fellowship, and the beauty that is all around you. For age does not despise pleasure, but pleasure despises age. You cannot escape the advancing years. Like fruit in the spring, the harvest of old age will grow, mellow, and sweeten as it ripens. Life leads inevitably to a bright future, for evolution always goes forward, forever forward. The best things are the oldest things that have endured and stood the test of time. So do not be ashamed of your age. In the march of time, everything becomes old. Mountains, rivers, oceans, stars, and even the sun. Old age is the laughter of someone who has looked life in the eye and concluded all is good, even the not so good parts. Learn to esteem life and you will reach the pinnacle of wisdom. Nothing can take that away from you. Laugh and enjoy it. A blessed old age ends happily. Today is a celebration of growing old. We did not get this way by sitting around marking time. We worked, we acquired wisdom, maturity, tolerance, and understanding. The good judgment of senior years comes from experience. We moved to Briar Creek so we can grow old with grace and dignity, and with people like ourselves. There are no strangers here, only friends we have not met, friends who I am proud and privileged to know. Good luck to you, Lucille, as you move forward to your next home, which is full of love. Even though we will miss you beyond words, we abide by your decision and bid you a fond adieu. Frank, if you would like to say the blessing.